Let's go ahead and just keep it real, man. Nothing says I'm the Punisher like a dude meditating naked in the sewer. I did a couple Jon Bernthal videos about his Punisher, talking about how inaccurate he is to the comic and probably the worst take of the Punisher. But then it dawned on me. A lot of people brought up Dolph Lundgren. I was saying Lundgren because I thought that's how it was pronounced, but a bunch of people were spazzing out and freaking out in the comments, explaining to me that I wasn't pronouncing it right, so my bad. But I thought about the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie and how I've never really talked about it in depth or made a video on it. And it's actually batshit crazy, but low-key a better version of the Punisher than Jon Bernthal's Punisher and more comic accurate. Anyway, we're going to talk about that today. Stay tuned.
Hero Bishop Show, it's party time, it's excellent. Hero Bishop Show, it's party time, it's excellent.
Before the MCU, before Netflix, before Disney Plus, before Jon Bernthal, there was this. The original 1989 Punisher movie starring Dolph Lundgren. You know what? I'm going to keep calling him Lundgren on purpose just for those people who were spazzing out. So how about that? Original Punisher movie feels less like a Marvel film and more like a bootleg action movie somebody bought at the flea market. Classic late 80s, early 90s action hero shit. In the vein of Rambo, fucking Universal Soldier, Cobra, sick shit like that. And if I had to rank him in the Punisher rankings, he's my third favorite Punisher, and I think the third most accurate, with Jon Bernthal being the least accurate. I used to catch this movie late night as a kid for some reason, and every time I felt like, I probably shouldn't be watching this. It's a little warped. Almost like somebody mixed RoboCop, Terminator, Cobra into a VHS they found in a fucking haunted house. Yeah, that crazy. That opening scene where he's meditating in the sewer, he looks all drugged out like, It's crazy, man. But I like it. It's weird. It's fucked up. Yeah. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. The movie barely looks like The Punisher. No logo, no comic book visuals, just straight, dark, dirty 80s action. This feels like underground cinema, bootleg fan film, and complete 80s testosterone. It doesn't really feel like the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it today. It feels like a VHS that your divorced uncle had and he watched every night while he got drunk and cried. And honestly, Dolph low-key works as Frank Castle. I didn't like the fact that there was no skull, but other than that, pretty much got it down. All black, Jim Lee, War Journal style hair. I mean, he looked pretty badass. He was cold, he was detached, he felt dead inside. Not too emotional, locked in. Like I said, Ray's Punisher was. Like we've said many times, Bernthal's Punisher is not. And that is more comic accurate than people like to admit. I don't like the fact that they changed his origin story and made him a cop again. I don't know why they did that in this movie and the Thomas Jane one. It always rubbed me the wrong way. But other than the lack of the skull and the cop origin, it's pretty fucking Punisher, man. This version doesn't feel emotionless. He feels empty, like losing his family took everything away and he has one mission. And we all know what that is. He died emotionally years ago, and all he's doing now is functioning off of vengeance and his naked meditation rituals. Well, probably not so much the naked meditation rituals, but that shit was so crazy, man. It was such an odd choice, but it worked. And homie looked like he hadn't slept since Vietnam, bro. Look in that man's eyes. This is where people still get it confused. He is more accurate than Jon Bernthal's Punisher. It was 1989. Was it exactly comic accurate? No. But here's the thing, it still understood Frank Castle better than a lot of modern versions. Look at the actual dialogue Dolph gets in this movie, dude. Where is justice? Where is punishment? Here, in me. That's not a guy throwing tantrums. That's not a guy having schizo breakdowns and crying. That's a guy who died years ago and is set on his mission, set on delivering justice and getting vengeance for his family and bringing the justice forth that the system failed to give him. Or when his boy Jake asks him, "What the fuck do you call 125 murders in 5 years?" And Frank just looks at him with a sick-ass one-liner, "Work in progress."
Work in progress.
That's how the Punisher's supposed to be, man. Cold, dry, detached, like killing criminals is just another shift at work, man. Dude, even his threats feel calm. He tells little kid Tommy, like, "Yo, you're a good kid. You better stay on that track, because if you don't, I'll be waiting for you."
Because if not, I'll be waiting.
That's what made Dolph's Punisher intimidating. He barely raised his voice. He showed no emotion. But every scene feels like death walked in the room and he was a man in control of this. Modern versions like Jon Bernthal feel so uncontrolled with rage, skitzed out, spazzed out, that instead of going out to get vengeance systematically like it's a mission, he feels like he's on the verge of snapping and being put in a fucking mental home. And that's the thing, that might be scary or crazy or wild in a different movie, but the Punisher's supposed to be more calculated than that. Because he wasn't chaotic, he was certain, and he was capable. Because I said it before and I'll say it again, Punisher is not supposed to be Wolverine. You guys keep talking about, oh, we're going to make more Punisher movies, we want to respect the source material. Then do it, man. Go read Dixon's Warzone, or Ennis's Max, or any other classic 80s Punisher run or 90s run, and get the shit right. Supposed to feel controlled, focused, like a man that emotionally died. And that's exactly what Dolph's Punisher felt like. Bernthal's Punisher acts like he punched drywall in every scene. Lundgren's Punisher felt like he hasn't felt emotion since 1979. Punisher should feel like death walking into a room. And that's what he felt like. Bernthal plays Punisher like a traumatized attack dog. Dolph plays him like an executioner. And that executioner vibe is way closer to the comics than the current Punisher. One thing people forget about this movie is how Frank Castle is dismantling organized crime fucking organizations one by one by one. Really doing Punisher shit. Mafia families, street gangs, drug runners, fucking Yakuza. He's coming for everybody. He's acting like the Punisher. Punisher moved through the underworld like a natural disaster. He doesn't act like a superhero protecting the city. He doesn't act like a schizo revenge boy. No dramatic rooftop monologues or him in his room alone, isolated, crying. Just Frank Castle showing up, looking around, and reducing another crime empire to a distant memory. Look, bro, he was out here snapping fucking members of the Yakuza's gang's necks. This movie understands that Punisher works best when criminals are genuinely terrified of him. He looks exhausted, emotionally hollow, like vengeance became his whole personality years ago. And you know what? He looked dirty, bro. He looked dirty. I used to think that was like a 5 o'clock shadow makeup in the movie because you could see like shit up on his ear. But it was actually supposed to be like dirt and shit, apparently. I don't know if that's true or not, but I read it on some trivia thing. And if it is, that's badass. Not the most comic accurate, but I fucking love how weird and crazy this fucking movie is. He doesn't look like a superhero. He looks more like a drunk behind the bowling alley who fights everybody for no fucking reason. Honestly, kind of fits the vibe because this version of the Punisher lives in the sewer. Not an underground base, not a little fucking apartment with one box on the floor, in a fucking sewer. And He fucking rides a motorcycle through that bitch. Wetness, concrete, some candles, and the energy of a man who don't give a fuck where he sleeps as long as he gets to take out criminals. He feels like an urban legend homeless people and criminals warn each other about. Less like a superhero, more like a fucking cryptid. No relationships, no joy, and not much hygiene. And this movie has some of the most insane 80s dialogue and one-liners that I've ever heard. Perfect Punisher shit. The Yakuza woman stole almost every scene she was in. She was sassy. She has sick-ass lines like, "We are Yakuza. And your ancestors were still shepherds." What? She was out here talking wild. No goofy MCU humor, no self-aware quips, just unapologetic 80s action lines. There's this part where he's getting tortured on this crazy fucking torture device. It's like pulling his body apart. And she says, "Who sent you?" And Frank looks at her and says, "Batman." What? Hell yeah, dude.
Batman.
These jokes should not work in this movie, but somehow when Frank says it with hollow-eyed exhaustion, just dead-ass serious, Batman, it works. And then she's about to leave, and she's like, I'm paraphrasing this, but she's like, "I'm gonna leave you here to get tortured by this other guy. Goodbye." And then Frank just looks at her and goes,
Have a nice day.
Bro, this man kills entire gangs and still has time to be sarcastic to the people who have him captured. And then when they're torturing him, stretching his body out, she says, "Do you know how much pain $10,000 can buy?" Motherfucker says, "Is the question true, false, or multiple choice?" That is peak Punisher. Calm under pressure, no fear, dry humor. He talks with all the gravitas of a stepdad who's over it and trying to manage his kids. This movie is messy, it's weird, it barely feels like Marvel. But you know what? At least it had identity. He acted like the Punisher from the comics. It wasn't trying to appeal to everybody. It wasn't trying to appeal to a modern audience or somebody's politics. It was just there to be ugly, unapologetic 80s action. And nowadays, with all the bullshit in these movies and shows, it's kind of refreshing to watch again. With all that being said, the original Punisher movie, although not comic accurate, still feels more Punisher than the current Punisher. It feels like a violent VHS tape that you shouldn't have been watching as a kid, but for some reason my dad didn't give a fuck. And all that shit is why it still hits today, it's still relevant, and it's still some fans' favorite Punisher. Anyway, as always, I appreciate y'all watching. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below. Peace.